Hey, peace. What's happening, everyone? On our deal with.
Ooh, yeah. Nah, nah, nah.
Suddenly there came a sound from heaven, as of a rushing mighty wind, like the rushing of a mighty wind, like the rushing of a mighty wind. Come and fill our hearts again, like the rushing of a mighty wind.
Yeah, blessings. Once again, you know the routine. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. All of that helps. So you don't know. Without any further ado, let's get started. Yeah, today I'm going to do some reading on Marcus Garvey and his meetings with the KKK. And what inspired me to even look into this was, unbiased Ron. I want to play a little something about regarding what Unbiased Khan said. Yeah, here's what Unbiased Khan said about Marcus Garvey.
You said NBA is FBI, CIA, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you identify as a Pan-African?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure you well versed on Marcus Garvey, correct?
Yeah.
Marcus Garvey was a Jamaican that came over to the States. I believe he met with an organization called KKK.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Garvey met with the KKK, and
hey, family, do all FBAs think alike? Yes, you dig. Isn't that my argument? When they tell us we're FBA, Tariq is an informant, Yvette is this, Donnie Williams is that. Let's say in the chat, they might say Sergeant King is this. They might say Jedi Sage is that. They might say Shabazz American Freedman is this. Like Black is that. They claim we're CIA, FBA, white supremacists all day, but their leader literally was aligned himself up with the KKK. So that was a great point. Like, dude, y'all have this fantasy projection about us aligning ourselves with white supremacy when your leader literally aligned himself with white supremacy. So that's a projection, bro. You're projecting what your leader did on us. That's what you guys do. Foundation Black Americans, we always despise the KKK. We always hated them. We ain't never tolerate them and praise them and want to link up with them and do business. That's what a tether named Marcus Garvey did. You guys are literally team white supremacy all day. Your leader aligned himself up with the KKK. And you got a nerve to say we are white supremacists and we use conservative talking points. Bro, stop.
Yeah, did y'all hear Unbiased Khan? Unbiased Khan is funny. He said there's never been an FBA leader that has met with the KKK. Never, he said. FBA don't do that. That's tether stuff, he said. FBA don't do that. And so, that's pretty much what kind of inspired me to go chat GPT in. Because, that's a good question. That's a good question, I think. Is Marcus Garvey the only black leader to have met with the KKK? I'm wondering. So I'm going to just ask ChatGPT. I'm just going to ask ChatGPT, see what ChatGPT says. So I asked ChatGPT for a list of Black American leaders that met with the KKK. And ChatGPT said, there are a few cases in US history, where prominent black leaders or organizations had meetings directly or indirectly with the Ku Klux Klan, KKK. These encounters were controversial and usually took place in the early 20th century, when the Klan was at its height. A few notable examples. First example, Marcus Garvey and the UNIA in the 1920s. It says Marcus Garvey, leader of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, met with leaders of the Ku Klux Klan in the early 1920s. It goes on to say Garvey and the Klan both supported racial separation, but for opposite reasons. Garvey promoted black self-determination and back to Africa movements, while the KKK wanted segregation to preserve white supremacy. In 1922, Garvey met with Edward Young Clark, the acting imperial wizard of the Klan in Atlanta. The meeting centered on shared interest in keeping the races separate, though Garvey framed it as pragmatic strategy, not an endorsement of the Klan's violence. This decision was deeply criticized by other black leaders like W.E.B. Du Bois, who saw it as dangerous appeasement. So that's the first black leader that ChatGPT mentioned. Marcus Garvey. That's the first one that ChatGPT said met with the KKK. So here's the second one. And the second one is interesting because of, I mentioned that it was Unbiased Khan that keeps speaking about Marcus Garvey and saying the video I played was him saying what he says. Never find the FBA to do this. So this one should be of major interest to Unbiased Khan. Number 2 on the list of leaders that have black leaders who have met with the KKK. Drum roll. Y'all ready for this? Are y'all ready? The Nation of Islam. In the 1930s to the 1960s. The Nation of Islam. It says, in its early decades, the Nation of Islam, or NOI, held meetings with white supremacist groups, including the KKK. In the 1960s, the Klan and NOI representatives met in the South to discuss issues of mutual interest. Both supported segregation, and again, for opposite reasons. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound like what they said about Marcus Garvey? Yeah, it sounds like the same. And it goes on to say, in the 1960s, the Klan and NOI representatives. Oh, I read that already. But I'm going to read it again because it's so fun. I'm going to read it again. In the 1960s, the Klan and NOI representatives met in the South to discuss issues of mutual interest. Both supported segregation, and again for opposite reasons. Then it goes on to say, Malcolm X himself, while still a minister in the NOI, was reportedly present at a 1961 meeting in Atlanta between NOI and Klan leaders. Malcolm X himself. The FBA God. Is he the FBA God? No, he's half tether, so I don't know if he's still the FBA God, but he was the Black American standard. But Malcolm X himself met with the KKK. It says the NOI sought to avoid clashes with the Klan and sometimes negotiated non-aggression pacts. After leaving the NOI, Malcolm X publicly criticized these dealings. So kudos to Malcolm, at least he criticized those dealings. He certainly did. Other interactions. So that's Malcolm X and the NOI. And the reason I said the NOI is going to be of interest to unbiased Ron, unbiased Khan. The reason I said it was going to be of interest to him is because guess who was a member of the NOI? The man himself, unbiased Khan. Unbiased Khan, who keeps telling every tether, every Caribbean person he makes Garvey their leader, and wants to say to all Caribbeans, all Pan-Africanists, Garvey is their leader, and he met with the KKK. Buddy, you were a member of the NOI. Your very organization met with the KKK for the same reason that Marcus did. Separation stuff, to separate, talk about separating. Your own organization did that. And here you are talking about you don't know anybody. Well, you didn't know this before you joined the NOI? Did you know before you joined the NOI that they met with the KKK? You didn't know that, unbiased Khan? You didn't know that? Okay, maybe he didn't know. But if he didn't know, now he knows. Now he knows. Other interactions. Remember, it's black leaders meeting with the KKK. And it goes on to say other interactions. While less formal, some local black leaders in the Jim Crow South had to meet or negotiate with Klan members for survival reasons, whether to prevent lynchings, secure safe passage, or protect their communities. These were usually behind closed doors and not the same as Garvey or the NOI's ideological outreach. So in summary, the most documented cases of black leaders meeting with the KKK are Marcus Garvey in 1922 and the Nation of Islam leaders in the 1960s, with Malcolm X present at one such meeting. These meetings were strategic and controversial, not collaborations, and drew heavy criticism from other black activists. So does that answer your question, unbiased Khan? Does that answer unbiased Khan's question about whether there were FBA leaders that met with the KKK? I think that answers his silly question. So now will he leave Marcus alone? I wonder. Oh no, he's going to say Marcus was scamming. Wait. Elijah Muhammad. How is his track record? There are charges against Elijah Muhammad that doesn't come close to what Marcus is charged with. And Elijah Muhammad, let's remember, Elijah Muhammad at one point was unbiased Khan's God. The NOI considered Elijah Muhammad to be what? The messenger or a God or something? Okay, not his God, his messenger. His messenger. His own messenger met with the KKK, and he acting like he don't know about it. What kind of NOI member was this? That's why he's unbiased. I'm sorry, unbiased Khan. So I actually asked ChatGPT. I just wanted to know a little bit more. I asked ChatGPT, I said, what were the goals of the NOI and KKK meetings? Why did the NOI want to meet with the KKK? It's a great question. The Nation of Islam KKK meetings, mainly in the 1960s, are one of the most striking examples of two groups that were ideological enemies on paper, but found temporary common ground. Their goals were very different, but overlapped just enough to make contact possible. Here's the breakdown. Nation of Islam goals: avoid conflict and violence. The NOI wanted to shield its members, mosques, and businesses from attacks by the Klan and other white supremacist groups in the South. By meeting with the Klan, they hoped to negotiate a kind of non-aggression pact. Their segregationist philosophy. At that time, the NOI under Elijah Muhammad openly preached racial separation, not integration. And to be clear, Elijah Muhammad was the leader of the NOI at that time. And where Malcolm is half FBA, half tether, Elijah is full FBA. And Elijah Muhammad is the leader of the NOI. He is the messenger. And he is the one that set up these meetings with the KKK, not Malcolm. It was really Elijah Muhammad. So the answer to your question in terms of what FBA leader met with the KKK, the answer is Elijah Muhammad. And if you're claiming him, you can also take Malcolm X. Because I know you want to claim Malcolm. So Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X. FBA, Black Americans, hold Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X nearer and dearer to their hearts than Jamaicans hold Marcus Garvey. Am I lying or am I lying? I'm not lying. So again, at that time, the NOI under Elijah Muhammad openly preached racial separation, not integration. They argued that Black people should have their own land, businesses, schools, and political structures apart from whites. Since the Klan also wanted the races kept apart, though for opposite reasons, the NOI saw room for dialogue. Number 3, land acquisition. Some sources suggest the NOI explored acquiring farmland in the South for Black self-sufficiency. Meeting with the Klan was partly to discuss whether such settlements would be left alone by white supremacists. That's the same thing Marcus was doing, really. Fundamentally, that's the same thing Marcus was doing. The KKK goals, number 1 was to preserve. First KKK goal was to preserve segregation. The KKK's goal was to maintain white supremacy and prevent racial integration. They wanted groups like the NOI that also rejected integration, even if they despised Black empowerment. They welcomed groups like the NOI that also rejected integration, even if they despised black empowerment. Number 2, exploit divisions in the Black Freedom Movement. By engaging with the NOI, the Klan hoped to weaken the integrationist civil rights push led the integrationist civil rights push led by Martin Luther King Jr., Core, SNCC, and others. The Klan saw the NOI's separatist stance as a way to fracture black political unity. So he was being used by the Klan. He was being used by the Klan. The NOI, Elijah Muhammad and the Klan was being used, Elijah Muhammad and the NOI were being used by the Klan to divide black folks and to break up the civil rights movement. But unbiased Ron, unbiased Khan, don't know nothing about that. But he was a member of the NOI. How were you a member of the group that was welcomed by the KKK, that had meetings with them? Not one meeting, meetings, plural. You had meetings with them. But you're here going at Garvey for having a meeting? Shut your stupid ass, boy. All right, next, control and intimidation. The Klan's willingness to talk didn't mean equality. They wanted to dictate terms, allowing NOI members space only if they didn't push into white territory or join mainstream civil rights actions. Outcome and tensions. Malcolm X, who attended at least one 1961 meeting in Atlanta, later called it a mistake. After leaving the NOI, he condemned both the hypocrisy of white supremacists and the compromises NOI leadership made. So Malcolm was sorry he did it. Malcolm was sorry about it. For the NOI, the talks were pragmatic, survival and self-preservation. For the KKK, they were strategic, divide and weaken the broader black freedom struggle. Ultimately, there was no formal alliance, just uneasy, temporary understandings in certain places. ChatGPT offered to also break down the 1922 Marcus Garvey KKK meeting goals and do it side by side, and I suggest that that they do that. So it did that. So here are the goals of Marcus Garvey and UNIA. The goals of Marcus Garvey in that meeting was to advance black nationalism and back to Africa. Garvey's Universal Negro Improvement Association promoted a vision of mass migration of black people to Africa and building independent black nations. He believed black people would never achieve full equality in America. Strategic pragmatism. The Klan was powerful in the 1920s and violently hostile to integrationists. Garvey thought it made sense to at least talk with them, since both the UNIA and KKK, for opposite reasons, believed the races should live separately. And number 3, leverage for negotiations. By showing he could deal directly with the Klan, Garvey also wanted to pressure the U.S. government into supporting immigration programs and to prove he was serious about separation. Now, the goals of the KKK. The goals of the KKK were to preserve white supremacy and segregation. The Klan in the 1920s had millions of members and controlled politics in several states. The Klan had millions of members in the 20s. They wanted to keep America a white man's country and openly opposed racial equality. They endorsed black emigration. That means blacks leaving. The Klan was willing to support Garvey's Back to Africa scheme because it aligned with their idea that black people didn't belong in America. And number 3, undermine integrationist black leaders. By dealing with Garvey, the Klan aimed to isolate figures like W.E.B. Du Bois and the NAACP, who promoted civil rights and integration. So they were using Garvey as well. The Klan had the same notions in mind in dealing with Garvey or Elijah Muhammad and the NOI. They were just using them for their own ends. Now, was Garvey and the NOI trying to use them for their own ends? Maybe. Can you look at it that way? Maybe. But it is what it is. This is just to answer the question of whether or not any black leaders met with the KKK. And the loud answer is yes. Reaction and regret. Garvey did not publicly express regret in the way we might expect. Instead, he defended the meeting as pragmatic. He said things like, "I regard the Klan, the Anglo-Saxon clubs, and white American societies as better friends of the race than all other groups of hypocritical whites put together. They demand that the Negro be given every opportunity to develop by himself." To Garvey, the KKK was brutally honest about their racism, whereas he believed liberal whites were deceitful in promising equality while practicing discrimination. The backlash. Black newspapers, the NAACP, and rivals like Du Bois excoriated Garvey for making common cause with the enemy. This episode became one of the key reasons Garvey lost credibility among many African American leaders. Did the NOI get that much backlash for it? I wonder. Did the NOI get any backlash for it? You know who didn't give them a backlash for it? Unbiased Ron. Unbiased Khan. Later writings. Even later in life, Garvey doubled down rather than apologized. He argued that meeting the Klan was tactical, a way of knowing your enemy and pursuing separation by any means. So where Malcolm X apologized, Garvey did not. Garvey, he stuck to his gun. So in summary, Garvey's goal: use the KKK's commitment to separation to advance his Back to Africa program. KKK's goal: encourage black immigration and weaken civil rights groups. Regret? Nope. Garvey justified it as strategy, though it cost him politically and damaged his reputation among other black leaders. So that's Garvey. So it said Malcolm X showed regret, but Garvey did not. So my next question was, outside of Malcolm X, did the NOI show regret? Did the Nation of Islam show regret? Because I think Malcolm X showed regret after he left the NOI. So let's see if the NOI showed regret for meeting with the KKK. ChatGPT says, excellent follow-up. The Nation of Islam handled its 1960s contacts with the Ku Klux Klan differently than Garvey did. Here's the picture. Nation of Islam's position after the meetings: no formal regret from leadership. Elijah Muhammad, the NOI's leader at the time, never issued a public apology or admission of error about meeting with the Klan. He maintained that the talks were consistent with the NOI's program of racial separation and self-determination. For him, it was pragmatic. If the Klan also wanted separation, that an understanding could reduce conflict with NOI businesses and mosques in the South. So Elijah Muhammad, like Marcus Garvey, refused to apologize. He showed no regret. He doubled down. So there's the answer to your question. Malcolm X shift. Malcolm X personally attended a meeting in Atlanta in January 1961 between the Klan and NOI officials. At the time, he went along as an NOI minister, but after he left the organization in 1964, he condemned those dealings openly. In speeches and interviews, he described the meeting as a shameful compromise, accusing the NOI of being too willing to negotiate with open enemies of Black people. His break with the NOI was partly fueled by this disillusionment. He saw it as inconsistent with true Black liberation. And this is the NOI that unbiased Ron joined, unbiased Khan. This is the same one he joined. I believe with the knowledge. He joined with the knowledge that they met with the KKK. Unless he's going to be like, oh, I didn't know that. That's news to me. And if it is, you're welcome. You're welcome. If it is, if it's news to you, you're welcome, buddy. Next thing, internal justification. Inside the NOI, leaders justified the meetings as necessary diplomacy, negotiating with hostile white groups to protect Black Muslims and advance land acquisition projects. Maybe that's why. So their take, so it wasn't just Elijah Muhammad. The other NOI leaders justified it because it was a way to protect Black Muslims. So where Marcus was protecting Black people in general and trying to get them their own homeland, the NOI was protecting Black Muslims. Which is probably why unbiased Khan didn't have a problem with it, because he was a Muslim at the time. They framed it as strategic, not ideological sympathy. Did they show regret? Elijah Muhammad and NOI leadership, no regret. They stood by their separatist reasoning. Malcolm X, after his departure, yes, regret and strong criticism. He later presented the meeting as evidence of the NOI's hypocrisy and failure to truly confront white supremacy. And Malcolm was probably just being political. He just used it after he left. He just used it to bolster himself and say, look, I'm different from them. They met with the Klan, not me. But he was probably just being political. So I don't know if I need to say any more. I think I've said enough. ChatGPT asked about what local Southern Black leaders met with the NOI. Right? I asked that question. I said it mentioned which local leaders did, and I just asked which ones. And I guess I'll go over some of that just to show that it wasn't just the NOI. That there were local Southern Black leaders that were meeting with the KKK as well. It was not just the NOI. So question, which local Southern Black leaders or organizations met with the NOI? ChatGPT says that's a very sharp angle. The Nation of Islam's Southern outreach in the early 1960s. No, and that was the wrong question I asked ChatGPT, and it went and answered that question, which groups met with the NOI, but I meant to ask Which group met with the KKK? ChatGPT says, I see what you mean. And it says the short answer, very few did so openly, and those who did were usually forced into it for survival rather than ideology. Here's what historians have documented. Black leaders or groups in the South who met with the Klan. Again, it went over the Nation of Islam in the 1960s. It says in Atlanta, 1961, Nation of Islam representatives, including Malcolm X, met with the Klan. The meeting was reportedly arranged by Jeremiah X, the NOI minister in Atlanta, and facilitated by Southern Klansmen to negotiate non-aggression and discuss NOI's desire to buy land in Georgia or Alabama. This is the best documented case of a Black-led organization meeting face-to-face with the Klan. Local Black leaders, pragmatic survival meetings. In smaller Southern towns during Jim Crow, some Black businessmen, ministers, and community elders sometimes had no choice but to meet with local Klan leaders. The goal was usually to prevent a lynching, secure protection for a church or business, negotiate boundaries where Black residents could live, vote, or hold meetings. These meetings were not alliances, just survival tactics, because they were highly secret and dangerous. Very few of these leaders' names entered the historical record. Then it says Marcus Garvey, not Southern, but relevant precedent in 1922. While not a local Southern leader, Garvey's meeting with the Klan in Atlanta in 1922 set a precedent that the NOI echoed decades later. His Atlanta visit was part of UNIA's expansion in the South, and Garvey's defense of racial separation resonated with both Klansmen and some Southern Black nationalists who were disillusioned with integrationist strategies. So in summary, it says the Nation of Islam, notably Malcolm X, Jeremiah X, and other Southern ministers, are the only clearly documented Black leaders who sat down with the KKK in the South. Beyond that, local Black elders or business leaders sometimes held back-channel talks with Klansmen to prevent violence, but these were survival negotiations, not ideological alignments, and rarely publicized. Mainstream civil rights leaders avoided such meetings entirely, seeing them as legitimizing terrorists. So there you have it. Just to answer the question of was Marcus Garvey the only Black leader to have met with the KKK? The resounding answer is no. Was there an FBA leader? Were there FBA leaders that met with the KKK? The resounding answer is yes. The most famous being Malcolm X and Elijah Muhammad. Not to mention a number of local leaders, church leaders, and I'm talking about Southern Black leaders that found it necessary to meet with the Klan and did so. And it's been a question for me because I was never sure whether Farad Muhammad was a Black man or not. And it's always was questionable for me as well whether Elijah Muhammad was a Black man. So just to be sure, I asked ChatGPT, I said, is Elijah Muhammad African American? And he said, yes. ChatGPT said, yes. Elijah Muhammad, born Elijah Robert Poole, in 1897 was African American. He was born in Sandersville, Georgia, to a poor sharecropping family. His parents were former slaves or the children of former slaves. So he's definitely FBA. He's definitely FBA. He grew up in the Jim Crow South, where racial violence and poverty shaped his worldview. Like millions of other African Americans, he moved north during the Great Migration, settling in Detroit in the 1920s. Then he encountered W.D. Fard Muhammad, founder of the Nation of Islam, and became his chief disciple. Elijah Muhammad identified strongly as Black American or African American. His teachings in the Nation of Islam centered on the history, suffering, and destiny of African Americans as a unique people in America, descended from Africans but forged in the crucible of slavery and segregation. In short, Elijah Muhammad was African American, born in Georgia to Black sharecroppers who became one of the most influential religious leaders in 20th century Black America. So whenever they show this stupid video that they love to show about Marcus Garvey met with the KKK, ain't no FBA ever met with the KKK. Tell them to hush their mouths, because like usual, they're talking nonsense. They're talking foolishness. When unbiased Khan, when he says your Pan-Africanist leader met with the KKK, just remind him he was a member of the NOI. Unbiased Khan, an NOI member, a member of the group that met with the KKK. So either he's ignorant or he's dumb.
I want you to listen very, very carefully.
Tell the youth them to be strong. You can't tell the youth them to preach wrongs. While you chat it on these lands, just remember every man is equal. Yeah, each one teach one, and a Father God him a the only done. So make we ease and reason. Smoke trees, span the ends, all the deep meds. Take a look at life and don't close your eyes. Sometimes things happen and it's no surprise. And I just so it go, so it go, so it go, so it go. It's a government no have no heart, them no care about poor people. Yeah, bigger heads no love people again. Them more sad than Hitler them. We see friends now reason again. Vex through whistle a blame. More time it hurt me if you see how the face. Deal with the eagle of them. Regular me see it a pain. Regular me see it a pain. Take a look at life and don't close your eyes. Sometimes things happen and it's no surprise. And I just so it go, so it go, so it go, so it go. It's a government no have no heart, them no care about poor people. Social commentary. Drop the one, your principle, you don't know. The global will come and do it. Some people life every day, it's stress. The high price from JPS, that topic is currently. Jah alone, him a go help you. We need food, cause we no healthy. We are feel the pain, beg you protect we. In our life, we have no envy. Take a look at life and don't close your eyes. Sometimes things happen and it's no surprise. And I just so it go, so it go, so it go, so it go. It's a government no have no heart, them no care about poor people.